Good morning, everyone. Thank you for joining us today, and we're excited to have you here. My name is Scott Thompson. I work for the Ole Miss Alumni Association, and as you can tell from my background, I am working still from home. My children, their school is still virtual, so that's kind of been the case for the Alumni Association for the last 5 months. So that's put a damper on how we've been engaging our alumni. We have not done any in-person events since the beginning of March, and we had to figure out, how can we reach out to our alumni and keep them engaged, and everybody's going virtual. So we have teamed up with all of our different schools on campus to bring some different programming to you. Today's program features some of our brightest out of the School of Pharmacy. And to introduce our speaker today, I want to first bring forth our member of the pharmacy school's leadership team, Dr. Alicia Bolden. And Dr. Bolden is Associate Dean of Outcomes Assessment and Learning. She's also a professor of pharmacy administration. Big thing to remember about Dr. Bolden is our pharmacy school stays accredited because of her. So I'm without further hesitation, I'm going to turn this over to Dr. Bolden.
Now I'm unmuted. My clock was chiming a bit ago, and another factor of the home environment, I wanted to make sure that didn't ring out for everyone. Thank you, Scott, for the introduction. And I am very pleased to be able to introduce my colleague in the School of Pharmacy, Dr. Seena Haines. She's professor and chair of the Department of Pharmacy Practice. And Dr. Haines is located on the School of Pharmacy's Jackson campus, which is connected to the University of Mississippi Medical Center. A pharmacist and a former dietitian who is passionate about prevention, health promotion, and lifestyle medicine. Dr. Haines is a credentialed health and wellness coach and a certified yoga instructor. How lucky are we? She's often an invited presenter at national symposia and workshops related to well-being and resiliency. And to further communicate this dedication to wellness and well-being, Dr. Haines created a semi-monthly newsletter entitled Wellbeing Elixir. Her YouTube channel, Yoga Apothecary, has brought yoga into the homes of many during the pandemic. Some of you who are attending today may actually have tuned in. Dr. Haines, I'm looking forward to exploring the road to well-being and resiliency with you and with our colleagues that are gathered here. And we are grateful for your willingness to share your expertise with us today.
Thank you so much, Dr. Bolden. And I'm so excited to be with everyone today. This topic, as already shared, is extremely important to me. I'm very passionate about it. And we're going to take a journey together. And so let's get started. So just to talk a little bit more about what you've already heard about from Dr. Bolden, the time of the pandemic really brought forward more of my passion and desire to give back. And so with that, my enjoyment, my passion for providing content around well-being and resiliency had already existed, but the other side, which has really blossomed since I'd say March, is around the aspect of Yoga Apothecary and around the development of the Wellbeing Elixir. As a pharmacist, you can tell it's coming through in both the name of my channel as well as with the name of the newsletter being the Wellbeing Elixir. And I'll come back around to this towards the end of the seminar before I open up for questions as well. I also wanted to share that this is an opportunity that today the message that I'm here to share with you is really, I want you to start thinking symbolically about it being a license for change. So a license for you to work towards things that you aspire that would fit as part of your wellness vision. I speak about a wellness vision because part of my credentials include health and wellness coaching. And with health and wellness coaching in particular, I work with folks around crafting a wellness vision statement, something that are the desires, the needs, the aspirations that individuals have. And many of you probably think in your minds may go to functional fitness or fitness, nutrition, and those are important. But other aspects that we speak about and work towards include other wellness goals. And this will make a little bit more sense as we move forward with some of the content, but it could be a whole host of desires, goals, aspirations. not what you might typically think of. And I like to think of myself as their guide on the side, where I get to take off my expert hat of pharmacist or dietitian. I do put it on when asked for, but I'm really there to coach someone from the side. And then I don't know how many Cars fans there are out there. You might note the little car in the lower quadrant there. I'm the coach concierge with the keys. I want you to start thinking about your license for change. I want you to start thinking about your dream vehicle. And I want to engage you, even though we can't be together and hear your voices, because you're probably all on mute. But to use the chat feature, and I have that up in my window to look at as well. But, you know, share with me, maybe some of you have your dream car, maybe you don't, but what is the dream car? Like, if you were going to think about that, what might that be for you? So maybe if you can access your chat, I'm going to keep everyone up and hopefully maybe see a couple things kind of pop through. But in any case, I want you to think about it, and I want you to think about the care that you would extend towards that car. In the exterior upkeep, in the interior upkeep, and think about that metaphorically or symbolically to yourself. So this whole framework for our time together is going to draw upon this car metaphor, and to think about the care of that car, and to think about the inner workings of the car. So the engine, the battery, what you fill your tank with, how you refuel that car. Oh, I've seen a few. Good. Oh, James Bond car. Very cool. Yeah. So keep putting them in there if you want to share what your dream car is. Oh, some people name their cars too. I love it. Love it. All right. So we're going to be on this journey. I'm taking you on a road trip. And I want to begin with this quote. To have hope, one doesn't need certainty, only possibility. Pause and think about that, especially in the times we find ourselves. I think it's extremely meaningful, and one I really wanted to put out forward as I set the stage with you. So I have a triple aim for today. One is to try and cover, I could spend probably all day on each of these 4+ strategies I'm going to talk to you about to promote your individual wellness, well-being, and resiliency. But I'm going to try and rein it in and leave you with some salient pearls for each of those. Definitely going to resource you today. We can talk in the open Q&A if you have particular questions about some of those. And what I really hope is that you'll be able to come up with what we call a WHOOP plan, which is a wish, the opportunity, an obstacle, and the plan. I'm going to come back around to this before I close my time with you, but I'm setting the stage that that's a self-care plan I'd love for you to take with you guys. The other thing is, several times throughout the material, you're going to see this image on the left side that is a caution image, keeping with the car, and this is the street sign. I want you to think about this as a building opportunity. And I'm going to check in with you a few times to hopefully have you put some things in the chat box. And then as a pharmacist, I'm going to give you some prescriptions. I have provider status, and I'm going to give you some prescription takeaways that you can make actionable as well. So here we go. GPS, we're on our way. I wanted to begin just kind of setting the stage about stress. So much of the literature, medical literature, well, literature in general talks about the impact of stress. And it is important to note that in general, our performance, as you see here on one axis, and stress levels on the other, there is a certain level of what we call eustress or good stress. So for example, there are things in our life that occur. We're going to leave BC before COVID on a little sidebar for a moment. There are things in our life that happen that can create good stress. Some of it is related to keeping us motivated and focused, right? So maybe there's a deadline pressing for our learners, there are exams coming, maybe you have some type of credential you're pursuing. So those things can lead to stress in general. When you get married, when you have your first child, thinking back, or for some who in fact may be waiting for your first child within months to come, these can be a source of good stress. However, over time, it can become sort of tip the scales over to what you're seeing on the right side of this diagram, where stress can overload us. And even those good stresses, depending on how you as an individual respond, can be bad stress or distress. And over time, excessive distress is what can lead to concerns with our mental health and aspects of anxiety or having panic, a feeling of being burnt out, which is certainly prevalent in the literature now with my medical friends and colleagues and folks in other disciplines, where what we don't want to have happen but can be at risk to happen is disease onset or disease severity. So again, thinking about this spectrum or this trend that we want to try and prevent around stress, illness, sickness, and disease. Another touch point I wanted to briefly mention is this fear versus anxiety, in that, again, before COVID, BC, we certainly have had mental health concerns across the globe. I think it's ever more present now. A recent statistic you're seeing there, nearly 1 in 10 Americans suffer from some form of anxiety, again, before COVID. Could you imagine what this data is telling us now? It is the most common mental concern. Fear and anxiety are actually cousins to one another and can be confused in what you may be stating you feel, one versus the other. So to take you further, for those who may not be aware, within the nervous system process, when we do feel fear, as you can see there, that friendly bear waving at us, or the car sign, be alert for bears. If I'm in a car and I see that sign, I am going to feel probably anxiety, because I'm going to wonder, oh my gosh, am I going to meet up with a bear here? And I might just give pause and think about that. When your flight or fight system, your sympathetic and your parasympathetic, one that stimulates and gets us ready for that attack, and one that calms us back down, when it's activated, that is our fear. And it's because there's a true threat. If there was a bear there, that's fear. If, though, you may have had that experience or you don't, but you see the sign like I mentioned, or you just happen to be out in the forest and your mind starts to go there and actually starts to fixate that you're going to come in contact with a bear, or you catastrophize, which is just a term where you just feel like it's going to happen and you can't kind of step out of that, then that's your anxiety kind of blossoming up. And depression can be that companion to anxiety over time, because it can be very debilitating. So I just wanted to sort of set that stage as well, because I think it's important. And with that, there is an impact that can be seen. It is tangible with anxiety and with fear as well, in your mind, through our emotions, our behavior, and the manifestations physically in your body. And so with COVID, in a pandemic, as we have been in this environment for so many months, and yet it is still unclear in terms of when this will dissipate further, we've had months of what can feel like anxiety paralysis on us. And you may feel that very clearly. And if you want to share anything, certainly can drop that in the chat to share that. But there is clearly an influence on the thoughts in our mind and how that then affects our behaviors, our emotions, our behaviors, and physically what happens in our body. So we, as everyone knows, have faced unprecedented times, currently and for many months. I have peers, medical colleagues who share with me the following, who have shared the following thoughts with me. They have a fear and anxiety about being infected, much like everyone who's joining this seminar today, and worried about their own health or the love of the health of someone in their home or in their direct circle, which they interface with. Many of us have been in remote status or in a hybrid remote status. So maybe you're not fully working from home, but part of your week may be spent there. And you may feel that you've lost all transition from work and home. And I have suffered from this myself, where I am working longer hours, longer days, working harder, and have had a difficult time in that transition window, that transition space of work and home. Some are working in new roles and with technologies outside of our comfort zone. I know as fellow educators across the campus, some who have had little experience of teaching in an online modality, that was a learning curve, and one that had to be taken quite quickly when this first became necessary to flip to remote status. Many folks are going to work, but children's schools for a time period were canceled. And as you know, many now are in a variety of different modalities of still remote or hybrid. And so again, trying to work through the schedules, the transitions, the support, missing physical connections with our friends, family, colleagues, and loved ones. Our world can feel foreign now because Lord knows watching the news of late is not often uplifting, and how to best plan for their contingencies. So this can be a chronic stressor on everyone, not only about work, but our lives in general. I mean, are there days that you just wake up in a fog, or you feel like it's Groundhog Day and you're just repeating this process over and over? Are you experiencing disruptions in your sleep, appetite, your normal routine, and your family life? Our resilience, so what you're seeing from Bounce, which is those sheets you put in your dryer, I like the imagery there, because essentially when you think about resiliency, I want you to think about that image. Or maybe you want to think, so for a car theme, you know, when you go to take your car to the car wash, and some of them have those like blow up dolls. Anyone know what I'm talking about? That kind of the wind takes them. They're usually quite large. Resiliency would be that little stick figure, balloonish guy or girl, being kind of taken down in the wind, and then poop, it comes back up again. So being able to come back from setbacks in life. Resiliency is your ability to bounce back. And whether you've had something horrific like a car accident, as you see in the upper right quadrant, normally when I've given talks on well-being and resiliency, I've talked about flu. We have COVID now. So still, you know, illness and disease impacting us and truly setting us back, no doubt. And of course, to no surprise, COVID is there looking back at us. So there are phases of normal processing through a crisis. So a pandemic crisis. The first is emergency. And essentially, this is where we first were, many of us, when COVID first came. And it was putting us in this emergency phase. And during this phase, you actually might feel very focused and controlled because you're in the moment, working through the chaos, kind of like the front line, I'm in it to sort of win it, I got to take control, and your productivity may have actually increased, working through all the things you had to work through in the acuity. You'll notice the little friendly star on the second level, because this is where I really feel like we're at right now. We're in regression. We're seeing still uncertainty. Many of us may have lost your purpose or your why. You're tired. You may feel withdrawn and certainly less productive and struggling with that. You're on the struggle bus, as many people are. And then we have the recovery phase, which is where we can begin to reorientate, revise our goals, expectations, and roles, and figure out the way that we can move beyond, see the horizon, and work towards further resiliency. So feeling like hopefully this resonates with some of you, and you would agree that you think, in terms of where I feel that we're at and where some opportunities are for us to seize. And that's where we'll continue further on. This is an image that shows a constellation of key attributes that the literature points to promoting our resilience, that bounce and that inflatable little person coming back up. So several are listed here. There are more. This isn't necessarily a comprehensive list. These are skills that some of you have innate in your being, your way of being. You typically or do have strong resiliency. There may be some others that you might look at this and say, this might be an area I need to be more attentive to, and an area that I'd like to place some focus on. So thinking about our optimism, that's one aspect. Can we focus on our strengths? I would say that is what we should be doing, your talent and your strengths. As a nation, we struggle with this. Our minds typically move us to negativity and negative thoughts. I call this the tapes you play in your mind. Hopefully that resonates with a few of you. 80% of our thoughts are negative, 20% are positive. So flipping the coin and trying to have more positive thoughts is very important. And optimism can be key for that. Having an attitude that is more a can-do instead of cannot. So an open mindset versus a fixed mindset. Having emotional awareness. Social support, and I'll talk more about that a bit later. Sense of humor. Laughing when we get frustrated, trying to draw upon play and laughter in your day, which I'll talk more about, and the ability to adapt. As you gaze over to the right side, and hopefully you could see my mouse or the arrow starting to move here. What this basically is showing you is a depiction of what happens with setbacks in life. As I've been talking about, we reach a setback and adversity will strike. Maybe it's the car accident, having the flu, something else that's going to cause a setback in your life. And there are phases of recovery, and we want every individual to come back, not just to a status quo, which you're seeing here, but to grow and learn from the experience and come out stronger. That is the ideal. What happens though with continued setbacks or something extremely devastating, we can fall short of that, or because our resiliency skills, our resiliency muscle is not as strong, we fall down from that setback. Maybe it's to a survival mode, or what we really don't want is to reach a level of dysfunction. So just to create this picture in your mind, having an adversity strike and feeling that setback, having some deterioration is normal, but it's about what happens from there, whether or not you can recover and get stronger, or whether or not it debilitates us further and can cause dysfunction. There has been a lot of research done on the factors that contribute to our well-being. And hopefully you get good clarity here in seeing this with me. What is number one? It's right here. Social connectedness. And this is an area that has suffered greatly with COVID. It has totally impacted our human connection. So it's important to take note of that in terms of what we desire, what means the most to our well-being, it's social connectedness. Second, and something again, way passionate about for me, lifestyle medicine. So lifestyle behaviors is second. Coupled with that is a focus on our physical, or I'd like to really call functional fitness, because I'm more about functional fitness that is going to be contributing to your adult daily living activities, your quality of life, and as we continue to age, preserving that functionality. Our stress and resilience, our emotional and mental health. And then here, and hopefully that you start to see this theme, right? So the data is telling us this. What is also important are these factors here: having purpose and meaning, your sense of self-agency, financial stewardship, or thinking about finances and securities for that and your future, spirituality, or I always have a hard time with this word, religiosity. I did it okay. But basically thinking about that there is some higher power, higher meaning that you feel is part of a driver for you intrinsically. And then expressing our creativity. Those are your top 10. So with your dream car, I want you now to start thinking about a maintenance plan. When we buy our cars, we often are talked to about this, right? About having a plan to be put in place. But again, I want you to think about what are the measures that we should be doing on more of the preventative side, of which heavily weighs on self-care practices. So we're going to start looking at that next. I'm not sure how many are familiar with the happiness hypothesis. It is going to be one of the books you'll see again later that I do recommend reading. I really have very much enjoyed the positive psychology work. And this particular research done is one example of that. And essentially it talks about what can contribute to happiness based on research. So Sonia Lubomirsky is the key author, but she has done work collaboratively with Ken Sheldon. Again, if you're not familiar, they were given over $1 million in funding by the NIH, or National Institute of Mental Health, to find out what makes us happy. So what makes people the happiest, and how to just raise the general population's happiness. And what her research tells us is that the fountain of happiness can be found in how we behave, what we think, and what goals we set every day of our lives. I'm going to say that again. How we behave, how we think, and the goals we set every day of our lives. So essentially, happiness happens with action. It's actionable steps. So it may surprise you to know that our life circumstance, which certainly is a factor, your life circumstance, your genetics, it is a factor, but it does not significantly impact our happiness. But what does is the 40% that comes from our intention, and the 50% of what your genetic set point is. So think about this. 50% of our happiness is determined with a set point, 10% life circumstance, 40% the power is within you. So ponder on that. What does her research come to describe are some important factors within happiness? I talked about social connections, human dimension being number one. So it shouldn't surprise you to see that at the top. Nurturing our social relationships, having an attitude of gratitude, self-compassion, and compassion for others. Compassion for others moves us beyond empathy. Compassion for others moves you to act on the behalf of others. We derive happiness from that. Practicing optimism for the future, savoring experiences. Research time and time again tells us it is not the things that you own, it is not the materialism things that you think will bring you happiness. It is the experience. When you meet with people, when you take that trip and you go through that experience and you savor it, what you eat, what you see, tours you do, all those things, it's the memories of that experience that contribute to your happiness. Making physical activity a habit, yes. I'm going to talk more about that. Committed to meaningful goals, and then again, having that higher purpose within your spirit, within your way of being. So I just want to check in and tell me, in looking at this list, does this resonate with you? How many of these do you think you would say you put into practice? 1, 2, 3, 4? Maybe just throw a number in the chat so I know you're out there. Awesome. Yes, lots of numbers. Good. And if the numbers aren't showing that you reach them all or half of them, it is totally okay. It is an area of awareness of something you may set towards. So I think wonderful. I appreciate you guys sharing. So just moving us forward, another kind of foundational setting the stage is our dimensions of wellness. And these are important. These are, again, pushed forward through our Mental Health Friends and Colleagues Association, and an area of opportunity to focus on each of these. So your emotional wellness, your financial wellness, social, spiritual, physical, intellectual, environmental. They are all very important and all perhaps a possibility to strive and work towards, and ones to consider as we move forward, where I talk about some of these pearls with you that I hope you will come back to as a potential area that you'll want to strive towards. I also recently read an article through the Harvard Business Review, which I really enjoy much of what they provide to their readers. And this article really excited me because it talks about renewable energies. 4 dimensions of personal energy. And I think this can apply to any work setting. The first energy is emotional. The second is mental. Third is spiritual, and 4 is physical. This article describes companies who have set forward organizationally to pursue these energies for their employees. So program initiatives, support that they provided to their employees as we think about benefit packages or services, targeting each of these energies as a means to re-energize and refuel folks within their employment. So again, the first is emotional energy. This is about what I talked about not too long ago, which is more positive thoughts instead of negative. So fueling more positive emotions in the workplace, diffusing negative emotions, and having a reverse lens. So what's a reverse lens, you might ask? So that is where we try to step in the shoes of the colleague that you may be having what I like to call a crucial conversations. I'm not a fan of the word conflict. Not that I have a problem with conflict, but I feel it denotes negativity when we say conflict, right? So crucial conversations, I think, is important. And a reverse lens is to essentially put yourself in the shoes of the other person that you're having this conversation with. That creates an opportunity for more empathy and more understanding of the dynamics involved, and often can help diffuse a situation. Mental energy is, again, we're in this fatigue phase. And so thinking about what's the way to preserve this, to gain back mental energy. As you're seeing there's one prompt. I'll talk more about this in a few minutes, but reducing interruptions is certainly an aspect that can be done. Scheduling time to respond to emails and voicemails. And I know that sounds difficult, but even if you could just remove the notification banners that flag you when you're working on X and all of a sudden something pops up in your lens at the top of your monitor and it's now taken your attention away, that is not helping your attention management. So scheduling yourself is one of the tips in working with folks I highly recommend. Twice a day at the most, and try not to do it any longer than that. And then creating boundaries. So you decide when you're going to stop answering emails, especially when you're working remote and there is no separation from quote work office or home, you got to call it a day and try and stick to that. Spiritual energy. So this is where you need to find your flow. I'll talk more about what that is, but that is both flow in the mind, meditation, mindfulness practices, and moving your body. And then even though many of you may be remote part of the time, maybe all of the time, we need to find at the end of your workday transition. So pretend that you're commuting when you're not, and take 20 minutes, put it on your calendar to come back to a time for meditation and mindfulness, to read from something that's going to help calm and relax you because maybe the day was more stressful. Find an opportunity to draw from the well of your core values is also by finding your flow. And then again, physical energy, proper sleep hygiene, again, moving your body, feeding the vessel. Nutrition is so very important, and I really feel like I call it king in our lives. And taking breaks. I'm going to stop there on that because I'll talk more about that particular pearl in a little bit as well. So on our journey, we're going to stop. You've got some road signs here. We're going to stop in a few places. Again, I could talk about each of these all day long, but I'm going to try and hone it in and give you some pearls. Routines is one. Social connectedness, since it's a huge driver for us intrinsically. Gratitude and purpose. Again, opportunity to build, and there will be some prescriptions coming your way. So this is there's a lot on this slide. I want to just spend a few minutes talking about this because this one's really important for those who, again, are working in a remote capacity. And so we don't want to have a schedule collision happen, right? You want to keep that car on the road or end up causing detriment to yourself. So daily routines during COVID, during a pandemic, is really critical. And we need boundaries because the lines are blurred. There's no line in the sand for many of us, and this can be a real struggle for you guys. You want to sort of check in on what is helpful and hurtful for you in your level of productivity. So audio and visual distractions is one of those things. Does having music or some kind of sound help you, or is it a distraction? If music doesn't work, does a white noise help you? Does it hurt you? Are there simply distractions in the home? We have a dog. Jed Walker loves to bark. And that just takes me right out of my focus when I hear him. Now that necessarily can't be helped, but if I play some jazz music or something that's ever present in my sphere of work, it does help buffer what may be going on in the dynamics of your home or in the dynamics of work. Do you do better if your desk is facing the window, or is that a distraction? So where you have your desk, how your home office is set up, do you have all that you need at your desk? Supplies, how you will process your work, is it there? Or do you actually have to start running around your house to find it? That's a disruption. Each night you should identify 2 to 3 priorities for the day, and I would say no más, no more. Try and pick 2 to 3 things to focus on and make that your limit for the day. Granted, you may be facing some fires and things that you have to address acutely, but if you're just aiming for 2 to 3, you hopefully have the bandwidth to be able to stop and engage in those things and come back to what it is you hope to accomplish. I mentioned this already. Think about the finish line as if your car is coming to, you have your start line, you have your finish line. And I want you to make demarcations, quote, in the sand. I will start work here, I end work here, and try and be religious with that. Like don't derail from that. Mark it on your calendar, give yourself a helpful reminder. Those reminders are good. Check in on when you're most productive. Are you more focused and more productive in the morning, or are you like a night owl? I am the morning person and maybe have a little zhuzh that comes in the afternoon. I am not the night person. So depending on who you are, lark or owl, Figure out where you are the most productive and try and look at your schedule with those dynamics in mind. Take breaks. I mentioned I'd come back to this. This is all over the literature. Time management, attention management literature. Taking a break is hugely important. Notice there's a range here. There's a rhythm or a circadian range. 60 to 120 minutes. You should stop working and take a break. Stretch your legs. Play with your furry friend for a little bit. Read something that would help center you. Think about a mantra. Meditate. You could do a mindful meditation in a minute or 5 minutes. So taking a transition and a mental break. So think about 3 times a day trying to do that. Usually one can happen when you eat lunch. Hopefully you all are not sitting at your desk and just working on through it, that you actually do have your meal away from the work. So that could count as one, but then thinking about within the morning span, can you find one? Within that afternoon span, can you find one? I hope you would say yes. Plan those in. And then I think peppered throughout the week, it would be also beneficial to find a personal oasis plan. Doesn't that sound lovely? And try and find 30 minutes to engage in something else. Hobby, making a phone call to keep that social connection, whatever it may be for you, riding your bike, build that in as well. Reducing interruptions by performing high concentrated tasks away from the phone and email. So I want to drive that point home again. Schedule the time that you respond to voicemails and emails, or the distraction will never end. It's a good idea in your calendars to buffer as you plan things, somewhere between 60 and 90 minutes of buffer time. And I think you know where I'm headed with that. It's because that's going to be the emergencies, or something takes you longer than you really thought, which is called the fallacy principle. We think it's going to take this time. It takes us twice as long. So we need a buffer for interruptions and some of the things that take us in a direction we couldn't have anticipated. Wake up and go to bed at the consistent time. I know that was one area really of struggle early on in the pandemic, was this. And so part of those routines and checking under our hood is to try and get up and go to bed the same time. And what I do during the week, I also do on the weekend. That's not to say you can change it up on the weekend, but it's just something to be mindful about, is to keep that. It does help set your sleep cycle and your wake cycle. And then I had to tuck in one little note about fitness there. So because I've had people say, well, I'm not going to the gym, or I'm not going to work and then the gym, which is what I used to do before, so I haven't been going. I just let it kind of lapse. Well, try and engage in ways throughout the day through potential breaks. Short bouts of activity are still helpful. Or again, to capstone your day, lay out your working clothes. So I happen to enjoy CrossFit. I do that first thing in the morning at 6 a.m. But the night before, those clothes are out in my closet, ready to jump into and get going with the day. So trying to figure out to make that possible is important. Okay, now you know I had to go here. I have to touch on this. There is, our British friends have coined a term, nomophobia, which means fear of being without our phone. Anyone? Anyone have that fear? Can I see a yes if you do? And it's okay. I'm not alone. As a department chair, I have responsibilities to make sure I'm accessible. And that does mean that this guy has to be with me all the time. But it is clearly in society a problem. And the FOMO, which you may or may not have heard of, this whole fear of missing out phenomenon, especially a struggle bus for our adolescents, teens, and young adults, and some adults, mind you, has taken over, you know, this, what's going on in social media across the globe, I must know, and feeling the validation from others, right? So feeling like I need to put things out there and get it back, that someone is affirming and validating this. So this is a check-in opportunity, another one of those I'll pause and think, and some of you are engaging, which I so greatly appreciate having not being able to see you guys, is that this is a check-in opportunity, one to think about actionable steps. And I'm going to give you some pearls for that in a few minutes. Here they are. First one, your phone setting has the ability for you to check your screen time. This again is a banner or notification I would support. So every week I get a little notification that pops up and tells me how much screen time I've had and whether I'm up or down from the week before. So this is something that you may want to set on your phone so you can be more self-aware of where your time is going. I also don't want you to necessarily choose the phone when you take your breaks. So for those who are going to hopefully adopt this practice, that you don't make social media your taking the break time. Don't do it. I'm not going to belabor this. I just have said it yet again about the importance of breaks. Asking for help. So I don't do this. I really should, but my husband, I love it. When he's driving, and you try texting or calling him, he has this pop-up. Maybe some of you may do this as well, that I get right away that says something like, I'm driving and can't respond, blah, 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 something like that. I think that's great. You know what? When you've decided to make boundaries for yourself around voicemail, checking email, create an office message response. And for your text. So when someone texts you after 5 o'clock, they get a response. Whatever you want it to say, it says it. Like, I don't check email after whatever time, or if this is really an emergency, call me. I'm not going to be responding to communications from here to here. So have something automate to let people know your boundaries are here. Or you can tell someone in your sphere of circle, this is something you're aiming for. So they can help you with the goal, right? They also can help be your accountability partner when you want to put this into practice. Boredom is actually a good thing. Some of you may look at it as in a negative way, but boredom actually resets us to engage. That break that boredom can give you when you have this moment of just like being okay with that pause can then reset us to engage and refunnel our creative juices. So you want to look at this as a positive. Equally important is another activity you might like, which is doing a brain dump. You simply spend 10 minutes, grab a piece of paper, or if you're a journaler, grab your journal and just doodle or write for 10 minutes, getting anything that's in your monkey mind onto the paper. And just do it for 10 minutes, then come back to the work. So that could be a great activity for a brief break. Yes, keep the phone out of the bedroom. I don't do this, I should, but the reason I don't is because every night I do a guided meditation on my phone. But if that's a distraction, find another way to do a meditation if you're in a meditative practice. So maybe you need to put the phone in the drawer of your nightstand. You need to keep it in the kitchen. Get it out of being a stimulus for you. Finding other ways to self-soothe. So again, social media, turning to that is not helpful. It is increasing folks' anxieties as well. So finding other ways to self-soothe is important. Maybe you can consider a digital fast. I know. But think about it. Certainly on a weekend, can you just say Saturday or Sunday, not doing it? Phone is going away. It's going to end up supercharged because I've just left it plugged in. Or at least only use the phone in absolutely necessary. If you're going somewhere, you need your map, you're talking to someone, but trying to avoid looking at your email, playing with apps, etc. Cultivating your physical senses, so your other senses, and using them away from your phone. Visual, auditory, smell, touch. Don't touch the phone, but experiment with other things. So maybe it's playing an instrument. Maybe it's working with arts, clay, painting. I think you catch my drift. Choose a physical practice. So here's where the physical comes in, or simply just getting outdoors. Can you take 10 minutes and walk halfway around a block? Heck, just go outside and get some vitamin D. So getting outdoors, getting out in nature clearly has been linked to boosting our happiness. A photo-free day is coming. Again, this is about the phone. So can you take in something that you would normally grab your phone and photograph, since typical cameras have gone by the wayside, and take it in with this versus this. Meditation, I'll come back to this. Committing to an hour a day of doing one thing. What do I mean? This is what I mean. If you're going to play with your dog for that 30 minutes or an hour of personal time, or your personal oasis I had mentioned moments ago, don't play with the dog and have the phone in the other hand. Don't think about, I'm going to cook a meal and have this recipe I'm going to follow, but while this is happening over here, I'll just check my phone. So it's about focusing on the one thing. Having actual FaceTime, I know here that is really not easy to do for various reasons, but so it's okay to use your phone for that, but do try and engage in setting up your phone to connect you, and not have it sort of in the backdrop and the person you're engaging with doesn't know you're doing other things on your phone. When someone speaks to you, look at them and don't have your head in the tech neck mode of looking at your phone. And this means not even having at the restaurant, outdoors if you're eating, or at your dinner table, even face down. Get it off the table. Here's another one that may not resonate initially, but there are probably a plethora of apps you have on your phone that you might consider saying, I don't really use it. It's clogging up my phone. And then I don't know what I'm going to be doing with this app anymore. So delete it. Take an opportunity to just get rid of it. So my prescription for you is, here's a few things to consider. 1, employ strategies to make your days consistent. Prioritize your day and experiment with different no mobile strategies. You have unlimited refills for that. So hopefully a few of these can resonate with you. So we're going to come and check under the hood again. And the second destination is social connectedness. So now we're coming up onto this. And I would simply say this. Because of COVID, because of the pandemic, this has certainly been impacted as well. So think about, and some of you may be doing some of these practices already, which I think is wonderful. But can you have a virtual trivia night? So you have family members across the country, heck, maybe in a town or two over, somewhere in the state, and you haven't been able to physically see them due to vulnerable populations, fear of infection. You could get on using technology and play with each other. So in that image you see on the top right, you're seeing people gaming with one another and finding creative ways to do that. We are using Zoom today, and clearly that is a platform that can help support that. Many of the games that we played have flipped into a virtual format, so that might be very conducive as a means to engage with each other. And in the workplace, something I've done on an occasion with our faculty is have virtual lunches in the quote break room, but simply coming together to socialize and eat together. Whoever wants to come, strictly volunteer through a virtual break room. So open up your creative juices and see if there are ways that you can bring back some of your favorites. Maybe it's a puzzle. I did a puzzle challenge with my brother's family in Idaho. It was hysterical. Hysterical. He beat me every time, but man, we would, pick similar puzzle size pieces, like 500, 750. And we'd work through a family challenge of who could get their puzzles done. Clearly, that's a skill I need to develop further. The next thing under the human connection is your pit crew of support. So bear with me because I want to read these in particular. I want you to think about, as I read these, who is in your pit crew? Literature supports a circle of 5. And here they are. First is your cheerleader. This is someone who is a reliable source of encouragement. They're on your side and they help pick you up when you're feeling down. They're one of your biggest fans and you can always count on them. You have a cheerleader. Next is the challenger. This is someone who isn't afraid to tell it like it is. They may be your polar opposite, which is a great thing because they give you new points of view and help you see your blind spots in your car. Their advice may be uncomfortable, but it's honest, and you know it's coming from a place of care than criticism. Do you at least have a challenger? The comfort zone crusher. This is someone who gets you out of your comfort zone and encourages you to try new things. What I like to say is TSN, try something new. They can help you break the ice when you're doing something that's out of your comfort zone. Do you have a comfort zone crusher? The motivator. This is someone who is probably ahead of you. They inspire you because they show you what's possible when you do the work. So that's like someone who is a role model for you. Do you have that motivator? And then finally is someone who I would call or classify as safe space. This is someone you're 100% comfortable with and can always be yourself. They make you laugh and remind you not to take yourself so seriously, and they are always there to listen. 2 ears, 1 mouth. Do you have someone who's for your safe space? So do you have a circle of 5? If you want to share that you do, throw that on in the chat. It's very important to think about our social support, who we network with, who we surround ourselves by, that we uplift and edify one another. So your prescription is to look at opportunities for social connection 1 to 3 times weekly. You have unlimited dosing, unlimited refills. So plan time to be with people who bring you happiness or doing social activities you enjoy despite being in a pandemic. And TSN, try something new. So our destination number 3 is checking under the hood, attitude of gratitude. One of my favorite subjects, well, that's all my favorite, who am I kidding? But I do want to, drive the point home on this for a few minutes. And there's been a lot of work done in social psychology around the benefits, and in particular, meditation and gratitude have clear links, data to support its impact on our happiness and life satisfaction. There's lots of different practices you can do here. I am a fan of the 3 good things approach. And you're seeing a little bit of a guidance here in the center of the slide. The other aspect around gratitude I want to mention scientifically is that it has been studied about the frequency, because you may be curious about this if it's new to you. How frequent do you need to do this practice to have it pay dividends? And actually, part of what factors into sustainability is the stick-to-itiveness of this practice. So although there's benefit in pausing and journaling your gratitude and writing these things down and reflecting, it is effective. It is equally as effective if you can commit to it just once a week. Multiple times a week is great, but it's really hard for people to stick with that over time when it's been studied. So I, in particular, take as one of my Sunday tasks is to write my gratitude practice out for the week or from that week I finished. So whether or not you want to have a gratitude journal, you can send letters and postcards to show gratitude to others, especially during this time. So colleagues, family, friends. You can have a best possible self diary. There's power in narrating what it is that you hope for your future. Ideally, if you could think about your best possible self, what would that look like? And writing that out and looking back over time at that, it could be so, so powerful. That you're probably wondering what's with the pennies in the bottom corner. And this is really to help what I talked about earlier is our struggle bus with negativity. Because our minds typically go to a negative thought versus positive, or maybe you have trouble with an experiment I like saying experiment versus goal, by the way. Struggling with an experiment that you're working on, and so you don't end up being able to do the thing. Maybe it was working out this day for this much time, this whatever. Something happens and you don't do it, and it's like becomes this all for none attitude. It's like, well, I didn't do it, so forget it. I'm just not going to do it the rest of the week. That's the negative thought example right there. And the jar is meant for you to put a penny in the jar when that happens. So if a negative thought comes in and it also impacts you, penny in the jar. Just to say, pause and say, no, hold yourself accountable. And then the phone is there only for the fact of reaching out and calling someone and telling them, if you choose not to do a postcard or a letter, why you're grateful for them. Do you make it a point of calling someone only to say why you're grateful? I mean, how powerful is that? Finally, there's a link on the bottom here, but easy to find. There's a type of meditation, if new to you, oopsies, called a loving kindness meditation. And it's a meditative practice where you're essentially trying to put love and kindness sort of out to the world. You're extending those positive thoughts out to others. And Lord knows we need it. So that's a type of practice that can also fit in the breaks of your day that I talked about just moments ago. Got another prescription for you. So here is your gratitude activity. At least once a week, you can write it. You can write at least one item, but maybe up to 3 if you want to do the 3 good things. Something else to consider is, how do you want to journal or document that? Or is it something that you do with mental thought? You can also look at potentially an AM visitation of this practice, a PM visitation of this practice, trying to do it morning or night. Maybe it's one or the other. Maybe you like the idea of both. And again, I'm giving you unlimited refills, just for life. One of the last things I want to do is around your 4th destination, which is checking under the hood regarding your purpose. And I've been doing a lot more discovery around this because I know it's an area of struggle around the impact of a pandemic on our purpose. And for some, again, you may be doing things you haven't done before, new work responsibilities, or just, again, feeling analysis paralysis. So how can we think about purpose in time of a pandemic? And there's an exercise I've come across I want to share with you. And essentially it's asking you to respond to a few questions. And they are this: what values do you want to bring to the day? So rather than thinking about my purpose in life, can you just think about today, tomorrow? What are the values do you want to bring? What 3 key strengths do you want to use? What 3 individuals, groups, or maybe it's a nonprofit, some kind of cause. Remember, we like helping others, right? We feel happiness when we help others, when we're drawn to act. So what organization can you have a positive impact on today? What are your 3 biggest fears or anxieties right now? Name it to tame it. Write them down. What are they? What commitments can you make to live out a more purposeful mindset? So you would essentially take time to answer these prompts. And then the second part of the activity is this. You have the opportunity to take this, fill in the blank paragraph and then plug those things into it. Because I value, you would put 3 values: this, and this. Today, I will use my gifts of this and this to positively impact that person, place, organization. I accept my anxieties about, so whatever those name it to tame it anxieties bubbling up for you today, and still make a conscious purpose-based commitment to do this, and this. What is it that you want to do with the day? And this comes from the work of Christine Whalen, who's a PhD in psychology. And I really just love this. It's hashtag pandemic purpose. And maybe it resonates with you as well. This is a sphere that lists many, the emotions that we feel. So when you think about what are those negative thoughts or emotions, the anxieties in this exercise, these are the things, this is the well that you would draw from to name it, to tame it. And think about, how do we flip? If you're feeling stress, the question or what you would tame is, how do I feel more calm? If you feel negativity, how can I feel more positive? So trying to flip the coin, so to speak, thinking about those things that manifest as anxieties and moving them in the right direction. Some other considerations that I would call energy boosters that I want to quickly pause on is aspects around this. So how do we fill the tank? How do we recharge the battery? Thinking about physical touch, acts of service, quality time, words of affirmation. This stems from the work of Chapman and White. Some of you may be familiar with the love languages. They have 5 workplace appreciation languages, which I've done with my department successfully in terms of a retreat many moons ago now, it feels like. However, when we think about self-care, well-being, and resiliency, there are some examples that I've kind of peppered underneath of them that fit. So physical touch would be our physical activity. I am personally a fan of those weighted blankets, you guys. I don't know if anyone has tried those. I love it. I do like that feeling of feeling of security and safety it brings. Certainly having a massage is another one. So that is a great way to, have that physical touch. Acts of service. So I've mentioned this already, but trying to work towards a cause on behalf of someone else, an extension of an individual, of a group. Scheduling the time to build that in and buffer that into your schedule. For some, they really enjoy cleaning. My husband would call it nesting. Certainly did that when I was pregnant, but nesting or cleaning, being able to delegate by engaging others, checking in on your quality time, hobbies, relationships, meditation, getting in your flow where you are stimulated and aroused into the sweet spot of your flow. I could talk lots about that too, but I don't have time. Words of affirmation. So positive self-talk, not negative, journaling, daily affirmations or mantras. All of these things fit into energy boosters, many of which I've already spent time visiting with you about. There are lots of great resources of how to bolster our happiness and also fuel our tank. What you're seeing here, this is me actually in Arizona on one of my favorite hikes. And looking out over that horizon and just taking in the beautiful vistas and nature, it's an awe experience. So highly recommend. And again, I have pictures that I can go back to. And when I look at that, it takes me right back there. So looking through photo books or coming back to these imageries is important. This is our son, Ian, and Mr. Jed Walker, our furry friend. And so obviously that human connection resonates with all of us, family and friends. Meditative story, so these are, what the rest of these are some podcasts that I particularly like. Meditative story, these are really amazing stories of people rising through challenges and sharing their personal testimony. And thus the lead facilitator actually pauses and meditates with you. So it builds in this power of testimony with storytelling. Rhonda Fitness, you guys. Rhonda Patrick has a podcast called Found My Fitness. Love her. She speaks kind of fast, so I want to prepare you, like buckle your seatbelt. But she's got amazing research in lifestyle medicine and the power of sauna, heat, cold, antioxidants, time-restricted eating. I mean, she's amazing. I highly recommend. The Happiness Lab is another great one. The Hidden Brain, some of you may already be fans of. Work Life with Adam Grant. He's an organizational psychologist, which I think is fascinating. And I love some of his pearls of wisdom that he shares. And then Rachel Hollis is just one of numerous motivational speakers that some of you may already have as a go-to. And I think that's, you know, sharing words of encouragement to speak life. As I alluded to, there is an array of books. I have read all of these, and I have more, but I kind of like tried to like, what can I fit on a slide? And so these would be some that you may want to put in your resource Rolodex. If you have time to build in some leisure reading to edify and work towards some of these strategies that I would point you in the direction of. Love them. And then a note about physical activity, in case you didn't realize, it's not just what's happening exterior, but it's what's happening interior, so in your mind. There is an impact from a diverse ways that you can engage your body through functional fitness, whether you're building muscle by lifting weights, aerobic exercise, HIIT training, yoga. How to do a little plug there, and I'll plug it even more in a minute. But clearly, there is an impact throughout our brain functionality. Meditation in particular, helping build our gray matter, which is a good thing. So knowing that we need to exercise to energize the vessel, but also feed your brain in good ways. This is me actually working on a pose called grasshopper, which took quite a while, but one of the things I love about yoga is that it's a practice of patience, which I think is something that we can all benefit from. So in March, and I think Julie, one of my friends and colleagues, is on with us today. Julie attended this amazing retreat with me and many others as part of the Southern Star family up there in Oxford. I did my teacher training years back here in Jackson, and then I have joined up with this amazing tribe of people in Oxford to do teacher training, my 300-hour, so moving my credential further. And we were in Guatemala in March. Yes, in March, before it all got COVID. And we all felt like we were in a bubble. We felt completely protected because we were on an island and cut off from the world as we knew it. So as everything was unfolding, we were there with each other, bonding as a tribe, working through advancing our credential. And we spent a lot of time focused on chakras, these energy centers in our body, when they're in balance or not, and how to think about balancing them and planning practices, yoga sequences that can help bring them in balance for our students. So these are just some photos. Can you get over that view? I mean, it was absolutely amazing. Coming back was a very harsh reality, to say the least. So I do want to pause and give credence to why I'm such a supporter of yoga. And I think what you're seeing here is part of that driver. So yoga actually means union. And what's really most important that alerts our parasympathetic, remember I talked about this, your nervous system coming back to calmness, relaxation of the body, is the power of the breath. Our pranayama is so important. And really the postures are secondary to the breath. The breath, if anything, is the most important thing. And that it's that deep diaphragmatic breath that is so important. Again, supporting our relaxation in the body, calming and centering ourselves. We're able to find better alignment through the postures. Centering and grounding, I want to drive that home again. It really does help you because it's a practice of patience to let go of the perfections. So many of us are achievers, we're driven, we want to check things off the to-do, we get obsessed with this. And what yoga really has taught me is to let go of the perfection. So what if you can't do a posture? No big deal. it is about learning from the practice, learning about yourself. It has been one of the, I have done lots of different types of group conditioning over the years and still do, but with yoga in particular, I really can't think of anything else. My mind goes completely as if it was a blank space. I am there in the moment, tuning into my breath, tuning into this present moment, and I can't think about anything else. So when I lift weights or do HIIT classes or other things, there are times I am still thinking about what I got to do today, what happened yesterday. I think the important thing is if that, whatever works for you to clear your mind and focus away from those distractions is very key. As I mentioned, it develops another muscle of lifelong learning, something we want to instill in all of our students. And there are certain practices of yoga, if you are a golfer or you have other sport-related activities, that can be geared to support and strengthen you in that sport, in case you didn't know. It is a form of mind-body stress reduction. I've alluded to that already, but clearly they go well hand in hand. And in fact, one of the techniques I use in yoga, and I have posted on my channel, is a guided meditation called a yoga nidra. A yoga nidra equates to 3 hours of sleep in just a 20 to 30-minute nidra. And it's a guided chant process, a guided activity that you would engage to participate in a meditative state. You are awake and aware, but you're in this kind of twilight period, working through this meditation. You'd be amazed at what it can do for you. So when I came back from Guatemala, our studio was closed, and my students asked me if I would consider posting some videos. And at first I was like, what? Like, I really didn't know if I could do that. I was a little intimidated, to be honest, but then I thought we weren't a studio that was Zooming or doing other virtual connections for the time. And so I thought, okay, I can do it. I can try. So I birthed the YouTube channel from that point forward, and I've consistently done it ever since. And even though our studio has opened back up in part and have added Zoom as a quality to the studio, I still decided on weekends, so I teach every Saturday, and normally I teach 2 classes every Saturday. It's been 1 since COVID, even when we reopened, but I also come home and then record another class. So I teach a class, I record a class, and put that out on the channel. And there is a series. So my first series I started was a chakra series. And then the second series I have started is Wellbeing A to Z. And each of these sequences start with a message that matches the letter of the alphabet. So my first sequence was A is for awe, and B is for balance, and C is for celebrate. So I've tried to create a wellness message that ties to the practice. And so for every letter of the alphabet, I haven't finished it yet, I'm over the halfway point, there'll be 26 classes for every letter of the alphabet in order to nourish the mind and the body. So all this to say, you have another prescription. Move your body 3 to 5 times a week, at least for 10 minutes. If you can do more, all the better, but short bouts of activity still have benefit. And track your progress. The scale is not the only measurement. In fact, it's not a measurement I'm a fan of to demonstrate your accomplishments. So think about that. Unlimited refills. So here's your challenge that I have for you before I open it up for questions. If we come back to the domains of wellness, physical, psychological, emotional, spiritual, personal, professional, what can you think about? What nuggets have I shared that resonate with you as strategies for you to start thinking about your TSNs or your experiments? The other aspect of setting these experiments comes from the work of Martin Seligman, who actually was also a pioneer in gratitude. And he talks about striving to pick those things that give us positive emotions, engagement, strengthens our relationships, gives meaning, is something you could achieve, and gives you vitality. So think about that as an undercurrent to those pillars: positive emotion, engagement, relationship, meaning, achievement, and vitality. So the PERMA V. I have covered these 4, and I would say meditation, mindfulness, undercurrents, all of these destinations. I want you to take time to rewire. What is the wish, outcome? What are the obstacles? And what might your plan be? Think of this as a dream realization plan. This is the WHOOP plan. Also has been found to be very effective as a framework in setting an experiment or a goal. I really hope in the time that I have shared with you that maybe if you felt more of the gauge coming in the depletion zone, or maybe you're in the good zone, and I hopefully have moved you from depletion to good or from good to energized. I'd love to see how you're feeling if you want to put that in the chat. And then again, end on a couple notes here. If we think about the Autobahn of life as the car on the road, I want you to think of 2 aspects, and they come down to this: to dream greatly. Direction, resilience, emotions, acceptance, and meaning. Give to others and to yourself, relationships, exercise, appreciate, and try. So again, here's my information. If you're interested in the Wellbeing Elixir, you can scan that QR code. You can use the URL in the bottom. Past issues of the newsletter are on the website as we continue to move forward with 2 newsletters a month. The wellbeingelixir.com houses all of the past issues of the newsletter, since this has now been underway for a few months. If you want to follow me on Instagram, this is my handle. The YouTube channel can be found here. And with that, I would love to know if there are any comments, questions that you have. You're welcome to unmute yourself. I'd be happy to answer those. Or you can throw something in the chat box. I will try and look at that.
I think that was great, Seena. But putting myself, that you had said it earlier about putting yourself in other people's shoes to kind of get a feel for why they feel the way they do instead of just rejecting them.
Mm-hmm.
And that's something I really need to work on. And that's come into my mind several times, and you just brought it home. That's great. I mean,
yes, I think that just, you know, this imagery of the reverse lens, or to pause, because, you know, we all have an agenda, and usually in times of these crucial conversations, there is an agenda. There is something that's at play here for you and for the other individual. And then there's still a relationship, right? So it's about, how can I preserve a relationship, come to some kind of agreement, right? A compromise, a way to garner consensus. Not easily done, you know, I say this, but I know it can be very much a struggle. But I think through empathy and through trying to put the lens on that someone else is wearing can just help us better understand the dynamics that are at play. So yes, I think it's certainly that many people face on a day-to-day basis. And especially with COVID, when some people can't even see each other, we're on calls with each other. I actually think it's tipped us over further than, you know what I'm saying? So yeah, totally.
yes, thank you.
Yeah. Any other comments, questions?
Can you hear me?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you so much. I am also a life coach,
Oh,
and you have developed the most extraordinary the information that you gave us was just so well organized, and it was just great. Thank you very
Oh, thank
much.
you, Susan. I appreciate that.
I want to try the yoga apothecary videos.
Great. And, I know yoga isn't for everyone. So even if you want to try and absorb the message or the nidra, I am going to work to develop other videos that will garner all populations, needs. I think my goal is to just spread it out. I want to bring things without borders to as many people as I can.
Yes, well, I do Pilates. I had a Pilates class this morning, and I do yoga.
I
Yeah.
love Pilates. That's wonderful.
Thank you.
Yes. Any final thoughts? I don't want to cut anyone off, and I know time is.
Hey, Seena,
Hi.
this is Kent Blake. I'm sorry I don't look exactly ready for prime time. That's why I kept the camera off. But I really enjoyed it. It was really good, and I'll try to get in touch with you. Maybe we can talk a little more later. I do something similar, but I've learned an awful lot from you today, and I try to emphasize the wellness in terms of yoga and meditation. That's not my specialization, but it's really important for everyone to consider.
Absolutely. Yes. And I really think, each of us will come to find what pays the biggest dividends for us. I mean, clearly there is research and more. I mean, I've been seeing more articles come out. I love it about yoga, but there are other strategies and ways for individuals to seek that calmness and recenter themselves and for something to be therapeutic, to release the stress, right? To let it go. Because if we don't have a source to do that, then it manifests itself in other ways, like where we began our journey today.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Well,
Dr. Haines,
yes.
Dr. Haines, someone has asked if these slides can be made available. And if you're willing to share them, I will be happy to email these to all of our folks who registered today.
Yes, I can provide a version of the slides that I can make a PDF available for our attendees. Absolutely. And I do think this was recorded. I think that's popped in there as well. So I imagine that will get posted as well. Is that right, Scott?
Yes, that's correct. The alumni office is building a web page within our website, oldmissalumni.com, to house this and the other talks that we've had so far and the ones that are coming up. It's not ready just yet, but anyone who wants to get in touch with me and have this immediately, I will email it to you, the link to it, as soon as it's made available.
So if there are no other comments, questions, or requests, I would simply say, I'm honored that you took this journey with me today. I do hope that it is meaningful for you as an individual, for your families, for people you come in direct contact with. If there are things that you want to share with them, I certainly welcome you to do so. If I particular can be of any other support, if you have questions you would rather follow up and send me, I have an Ole Miss email and a UMC email, and they both feed on into each other. So it's shaines@umc.edu or slhaines@olemiss.edu. You're welcome to reach out to me if I can be of any other help to you. And again, I just so appreciate all of you for making time to be here. I'll turn it back over to Scott.
Thank you, everyone, for joining us today. Thank you so much, Dr. Haines, for providing this information. Dr. Bolden, thank you for giving us your time to introduce Dr. Haines to our friends. This is part of a series called Upfront. Dr. Haines is one of the many experts that we have throughout our university campus. And so we have some that we've recorded already. We've got more coming up. If you want to know what we're going to be talking about, there's a variety of topics. OleMissAlumni.com/events. We are building on them every day. I think there are 2 listed that are coming up. I'm personally working on a couple more that will be taking place before the end of the calendar year. There are other schools with experts. later this month, we've got 2 law professors that are going to be talking about crisis and emergency law. They felt like this was not just a law alumni event, that they thought other people would be interested in hearing. There's so much going on right now with this pandemic. And then the pharmacy school is going to be in the spotlight again next month. Dr. Ikhlas Khan will be presenting on dietary supplements as a very popular topic right now. And I'm very interested to hear what he has to say, because we have so many people who are either taking dietary supplements or are thinking about it. And he is our go-to guy. He knows exactly what he's talking about. So all of that is on our website. We will be pushing this out via email and social media. Thank you again for being here with us. I look forward to seeing you guys in our future episodes of Upfront. And if nothing else, we will adjourn today's talk. Thank you so much.